I didn't see you there. My name is Abby Felvo. Welcome to Dash Jam, where the late great filmmaker and musician Jaimz Asmundson takes local artists on a sonic journey through the streets of Winnipeg with a live synthesizer soundtrack. On today's episode, our host is joined by poet, critic, and non-musician Cam Scott of hardcore punk band Age of Self. Enjoy the ride.
Well, Cam, I don't really know you at all.
Nor are you. It's good to meet you.
It's kind of like the whole genesis of the show. It's like going on tour and spending a lot of time in a car with somebody like not knowing super well, and then being forced by close quarters to get to know them, like
Coerced bonding.
Yeah.
That's one of the great things about touring is the mind melt. You know, you spend all this time in a little box, and then you take on all the same mannerisms, and by the end of it, you wind up communicating exclusively in inside jokes.
Like twin speak.
Yeah. And you're just totally opaque to the rest of the world, right? Your mind is jelly.
Why don't we talk a bit about Under Pressure? Like that was probably one of your most successful music projects, eh? Like
Under Pressure started, in 2003. We toured many concentric circles around North America. Did a lot of touring in Europe, where I think people were pretty receptive to what we were doing.
And was that just because you wanted to go to Europe, or did you have a following there already, or are you trying to find a following?
With punk music, you're always having to invent excuses to do the things you want to do. I don't know that anyone knew that they had to see us. We played principally in squats that are as nice as any club you would play here, And then those are long-running things. It's this kind of semi-autonomous anarchist infrastructure that you're interacting with, except really storied. These kind of ad hoc networks of support for refugees and all kinds of anarchist organizing at the same time as you have, really large-scale meal preparation going on, and you're playing there, in the midst of all of it.
How did you start making music? What were your reasonings for getting into making music and performing music? Especially as a singer.
Yeah, a singer, you need to have particular kind of idea of yourself.
Something that you want to say or something you want to prove, I guess.
Yeah, it might have just been that I was the least technically accomplished member of the group. And I had to contribute something, and it just made sense for me to be shouting into a microphone.
Okay.
The great thing about punk is that you can just take whatever material into your own hands with very little anxiety about how it's going to work, more so the singer than anyone. I think that's a cool portable ethic that I'm inflicting on this synthesizer right now. You just kind of handle the materials in front of you with no terribly precious preconceived idea of what's going to happen. And my interest in punk wasn't just in the oppositional energy or in that it was the site of my politicization. I always thought that it was really accessible to anyone who wanted to make it and experience it, and I was really interested in the way that it kind of broke down a barrier. And the expectation was always if this is something that you're interested in doing, you should be handling the raw materials of it yourself. The kind of music that I make is about instrumentalizing one's surroundings. The stuff I do with Kelsey, that's under the name Swolowes. We go into a space and we don't try to document it as field recordists, but we try to instrumentalize it, Okay. And we play with whatever we can find there. We should go into the Green Brier here and see if we can find Burton Cummings. This Salisbury House here is my alma mater. I feel like I'm doing this horrible disservice to our conversation because it sounds so ominous.
With the music?
Yeah.
No, it's perfect.
Yeah, okay.
All right, Cam, here we are at the North End Sals. So how does coming to a place like this and working on your writing, how has that influenced you?
There's the painfully factual reason that I require a disgusting amount of coffee to do anything, including this afternoon out. This is half as much coffee as it takes me to face the world. So they have my drug of choice. It's plentiful. It was warmer than my house. I think it's just good to be surrounded by people when you're working. It's a lovely atmosphere. Honestly, I can't think of a better place to, write poems of resistance than in a family restaurant.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to ask you about, you've been sober your entire life. What is it like being like a sober musician? Just being in a band is like you're by nature playing in bars, and you're just constantly around liquor and drunk people. What is your perspective on the live music scene, being a non-drinker?
In my own experience, being the sober one on tour with various kind of grindcore and noise projects is like being the black box on a plane that's going down. Everyone wakes up the next morning and they're like, oh, what happened? And I can say, I'll tell you what happened if you want to know.
What was the impetus for it though? Like
when I got into punk, there sort of was a straight edge scene. That was one available option, at market, and it's not so much a thing anymore. I saw a lot of people who I cared about a great deal kind of get into various things too deep in a way that I didn't understand the motivation, and I was never, I think it would be kind of repulsive for me to say that I was some kind of self-appointed chaperone. I don't know that I ever did any good for anybody, but I had these ideas that I didn't want to go that way, I felt really artistically motivated and politically motivated in my stake in those activities, and it seemed like this incredible creative group of people. I didn't understand the self-destruction.
Did you ever find that the music was overpowered by the community of listeners?
I stopped playing trumpet for a period of time because we were playing a show in Helsinki, and some really helpful individual punched the microphone through my teeth.
Wow.
And chipped them quite badly. I remember talking to him after, and he was a fan. That was how he showed his appreciation, So, I would be lying if I said there wasn't some degree of frustration with the violent extremes that some cultures of intoxication run toward.
One thing I was curious to ask you about was what do you feel is the ideal space for sound art?
I mean, I think it's interesting you asked that question, and we're driving around in a car making sounds, Like that to me is totally in the spirit of experimentation. What's the strangest venue that you think you played, or screened the film or anything like that?
Well, we played at a punk basement once. That was one of my favorite shows, though.
I think I was at that show.
Oh, really?
That was great.
How about you?
I remember a show in Lithuania where we got in a physical altercation with the sound guy, and it ended with him jumping up and down on my bandmate's guitar. He thought that we'd disrespected him somehow, and he had to administer, some kind of hazing. I played in some strange places. I'm thankful for all of them. I played in a cemetery outdoors in northern Italy.
Okay.
That was very marshy, and the mosquitoes were just awful. But, it's like something out of an Italian horror movie, a zombie film. On a pedestrian bridge in Austin, Texas, at dusk. In Austin, depending on the time of year, hundreds, maybe thousands of bats emerge from sleep and just darken the sky. It's this billowing curtain of bats. I remember playing a squad in Poland that was stormed by skinheads, and they had to draw the portcullis because all of these squats, they exist under such duress from right-wing police and right-wing skinheads that they're all fortified, because it becomes a story to tell But then you think, like, there's people who live there, and every night of their life is for the cause of this embattled venue.
Can you talk a bit about what you try to do politically with your art?
A stumbling block for a lot of people, in punk music is you have this urgent communication that's completely opaque and unintelligible and so on. And there's kind of this contradiction between form and content that a lot of people get hung up on. That's their first impression of punk,
You mean just in terms of not being able to understand what the lyrics are, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, as a communicative medium.
Yeah.
See, I guess people say it's sort of self-defeating.
So why bother communicate if you're just going to scream?
Yeah, and it's kind of
unintelligibly. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, that's the impression that a lot of people have of it, and it's kind of an ironic thing. I agree, but it was still the site of my politicization. Obviously, in Winnipeg, there's a great sort of I Spy, propagandy, Malfaction, Head is Concrete, Painted Thin, these bands. It put me on to some pretty challenging ideas for me at the time. Mm-hmm. But my politics remain a really crucial part of all the music and the art that I make. And I think that what I try to do is make art in a politically intentional way, which tends toward inclusivity, a generality of address, mindfulness of the political and economic circumstances of its creation, Those are all lessons from punk that you can apply anywhere, I think.
All right, Cam, what the fuck are we doing here?
Yeah, this is a site of tremendous sonic significance for me.
What is it about the sound of trains that entices you so much?
I hope it's not just an ill-worn nostalgia. It's this gorgeous, vocal, kind of plaintive sound. It's something that's kind of always been with, I think, everybody who grew up on the prairie.
During your punk years, did you ever do any train hopping?
I think that I failed by that rite of passage. Yeah, I helped many friends with better crust punk credentials than myself to get on board, but no, I'm an itinerant soul, but I love safety.
One of my favorite memories is Karen and I were we would always see like the no Save Our Trees, No Flyers, Please stickers, and we really wanted one. We're like, where do we get one of those? So we're trying to look to find this, where do we get this sticker from? So we're looking online. We discovered the guy who made it was this hippie anarchist, and then he had like this travel blog of train hopping. So we started just kind of delved down this rabbit hole of like looking at this guy's like train hopping photos. And my favorite was that there was a picture of him eating beans in someone's living room, and the people that had served him, one had like an eye infection, like their eyes were all red, and the other one had tattooed eyes, and his eyes were all blue.
That's
and like they were like sitting on the other side of him. Can you tell us about this bridge in particular? Do you know the history of the bridge?
No, I don't know a lot about it. I wish I knew more.
I do know, like it's designed by the same architect who designed the Eiffel Tower.
Oh, is that true?
Yeah.
Oh.
It was supposed to be used for the Nile River, but then they didn't want it, and they sold it to Winnipeg instead.
That's wild. I think it's a treasure. However corroded, however unsafe.
Have you ever had any dangerous experiences recording sound by the trains?
I was just up there recording, and someone shoved me around a little bit, which, you take your knocks. We were both out late at night, following our dreams.
Well,
we made it.
We made it. Any final words?
Thank you so much. This is amazing. Amazing. I feel like, I feel like the part of me that admires like Detroit techno didn't live up to the 808, but I love this Juno sound.